listening to the Arsenal Therapy Podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the Arsenal Therapy Podcast. My name is Farhan, also known as Gunner since '96, and joining me here this evening is Monty. Monty, are you ready?
I am. Hit me.
Let's do it. Okay, so first question. What did we deserve to get out of that game?
A draw.
Is it time to stop pounding that Kai Havertz drum?
I think so.
And will the PGMOL issue yet another apology to Arsenal?
Yeah, they will.
All right,
Oh,
good
what
stuff.
apologies, though?
Well,
Ugh.
no one wants apologies. Nobody wants to invent a time machine and go back in time to rectify the problems because guess what? That's a lot of bloody work. So, first things first, Monty, good to have you back. Good to be back.
Mm-hmm.
On a bit of a bitter, I guess, result. Just want to make a quick mention that since my son was born on Tuesday, Arsenal have lost twice on the bounce. So I don't know. Maybe it's time for me to build a time machine and to change some stuff. No, I'm joking. For those of you that don't know, I've been away for the last week with a new baby boy in the world. I'm a father now, which is crazy to think that I've entered that stage in my life already. It's been a whirlwind of emotions. And yeah, I'm still kind of processing everything, but I'm so glad to be back talking with everyone, talking to you, Monty. Adam's going to be back soon. I have to be honest, I didn't watch the game against West Ham, and I didn't watch the game against Sheffield United because so much was happening in the hospital. Baby was sick. Mummy was, pushing a
Tired.
baby out. So,
Yeah.
but this is a reality check for us. I think losing to Newcastle in the manner and fashion that we did. I think that the result against West Ham has something to do with that because to pick yourself up and to try and rebuild momentum and confidence against Newcastle, especially at St James's Park, is a big ask. So, tell me how you're feeling after that result.
Do you know what? Initially, straight after the result, I was fuming. My head was hot. I was on Twitter. I was raging. Now I look back at it, like you said, I think it was just a bit of a reality check. At the end of the day, we are 10 games in, and we've only lost one game. The league isn't over. We learnt that from last season. You can be 5 points clear with a few games to go. It doesn't matter. The league's not over. I think it highlighted some things that we need to improve, and it also highlighted things that aren't good enough in our team as well. But overall, do you know what? It was all right because I don't want to take any credit away from Newcastle because they are a good team now. They are solid. They were at home. They dismantled Man United, made them basically capitulate. Whereas we gave them a very good game. We probably could have got something out of it, but we just weren't clinical enough. We weren't daring. I think we're very cautious, and we weren't inventive enough in the final third. We lacked that final sort of cutting edge pass, or sometimes just to take the risk and shoot. Just keep Pope honest. If you keep him honest, then he has to stay sharp. Whereas if you know he's not going to get tested, he'll just stay back and he'll just protect his line. But if you keep him on his toes, that's when you can maybe get a shot from outside the box or anything like that. So honestly, I don't feel too bad. It's frustrating, yes, but with the injuries that we had and Martin Ødegaard, I think Martin Ødegaard being out was huge for us. I think that game was crying for Ødegaard to be in there because we relied heavily on Kai Havertz to start creating, which he hasn't done all season. So that was a bit of a big ask. But looking at it, I think we put in a good performance. To be honest, we just lacked that final touch at the end. Defensively, we were solid. they got a goal that just shouldn't even been allowed. But again, we offered nothing going forward, so I'm not going to be like, oh, we lost because of the refs. We didn't. We lost because we didn't score. It's as simple as that, really. But no, I'm feeling all right. We've got another game. I'm not going to crash and capitulate. We've lost one game. It happens. It's football. It's life. You move on. City have lost, what, 2 games? I think they've lost 2 games, and
Yeah.
they're still very much in the title race. So it happens. It happens. So what about you? And first and foremost, I wanted to say as well, congratulations as well to you. It's good to have you back, man.
Thank you. It is good to be back. With all those games that I was missing, I mean, I have to be honest, I wasn't thinking about it because, you know, it's weird. When you become a parent, it's as if like everything else just becomes invisible. But talking to you now, hearing your thoughts on, how you're processing that result, is bringing me back down to earth a little bit. And obviously, I just finished watching the game. I should mention that we're recording on a Sunday evening, basically 24 hours after the final whistle. We were on our way home from the hospital as the game was going on. So I watched bits and bobs of it, but I wanted to watch it in, detail properly, whilst knowing what the result was, which is a really interesting sort of experience. When you already know the result and the outcome, watching it with a more critical eye allows you to pick up on certain things that you wouldn't otherwise see when you're watching it live. And you know, it's a tough one to process because you made a really good point when you said that we shouldn't be needing to rely on officials or PGMOL or VAR decisions to win a game of football. There are some incredible stats on this game. The amount of shots that we had compared to the ones that we had on target. I think 14 shots in total with only one on target. A staggering 25 set pieces. That's a mixture of corner kicks and free kicks, and not being able to, really do anything with those. It was a very poor game of football in terms of the output quality wise, but the familiar style of football was there. We were able to play competitively with Newcastle. For the neutral, this was a good game of football. It was fast paced, high tempo, lots of energy, physical, but unfortunately there are some glaring issues that we're going to have to address on this episode. Most notably the finishing up top, the personnel, certain individuals, and the qualities that they have, and whether that's up to scratch or whether it's what we need at this moment in time. And maybe some questions have to be asked of the manager. Maybe we need to revisit this Ramsdale versus Raya conundrum, because I think that has a part to play in the instability or the lack of, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Fluidity. Last season, everything was fluid. Everything was really nice on the eye. We were pulling teams apart for fun. This season, it seems a lot more difficult. We make it look more difficult. And although the quality of the actual team play, or the build up and the way that we move the ball, although that's still relatively crisp and effective, and you know uh, top notch, top quality. It's the bits at the end, the loose bits that really need to be ironed out in order to convert. It's the same problem with Chelsea, really. They've got an abundance of good players, an abundance of really good possession football, but ultimately they falter at the last sort of hurdle, with the finishing or with that final bit of passing. So let's get started by talking about the starting lineup, because I think Arteta was forced into playing a team he wouldn't otherwise play had he had access to all of his players.
Oh, facts.
So what were you expecting compared to what we got?
To be honest, I wasn't expecting much different to what we had, but the biggest one for me was obviously Martin Odegaard out the blue, not being able to go. That surprised me. Once I saw that, it did worry me. I did put out a tweet just before this game, and I was like, "What's everyone's thoughts on this?" A lot of people said, worried." Some people were going mad at me because I said to them, "I was like, look, My heart tells me we're going to win, but my gut honestly tells me we're going to lose. I just felt it. I just felt it because I knew I looked at that midfield, and although the midfield is actually a very good possessive midfield, progressive, it's a very different midfield. Like Havertz can keep a ball on him, like he can take the ball on a turn, he can take it on his back and hold a player up. Fine. Declan Rice was our probably most progressive midfielder all game. With a few clear runs for the middle throughout the game. Jorginho is never going to light up the league with incredible splitting passes, but he is very consistent. And I actually think overall, it was okay. Jorginho played okay. I wasn't sort of alarmed with it, but the things we lacked is that creativity. Martin Ødegaard not being there was a big surprise, and I think it was probably the reason we lost yesterday. To be honest, but apart from that, and then looking at the bench, if anything, the bench scared me more because we had such a not necessarily a weak 11, but we already were missing some key players like Jesus and Ødegaard, who are probably some of our two best players. And then on the bench, we had two goalkeepers. And we had no creativity on that bench. I mean, we had Trossard, but then Trossard came on and didn't do anything. The corners, if anything, I think you said with the set pieces, a question I want to have is with Nicolas Javier. What was he thinking? What was the set piece plan? Because although people can go, oh, well, the ball didn't go over the first person. Well, is that maybe because we were targeting the front post? And if so, why? Because there was literally 5 people, like Newcastle's players, there all the time. So what did they see? What like you said, we had, what was it, 20 odd corners or something like that? It was ridiculous throughout the game. It was crazy.
Yeah,
or set pieces.
It was. I think it was
20
14.
set pieces, and it was
25 set pieces. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was just like, it's silly. Like we should be creating more than one shot on target in a game if we're having over 20 set pieces. I don't care who you are. We just should. And it's been something that's been happening in the last few weeks. We've just been lacking in set pieces. Look at the Sevilla game, conceded on a sloppy header because we were static. West Ham game, Ben White, sloppy, just sloppy. And we haven't really created anything from any set pieces for a while. And considering last season, set pieces were like our bread and butter. We could fret you on. We could have 2 corners a game and would probably score from one. Whereas this, I don't know, like this season that you said, it's something different. But maybe it's because this season we've probably earned the respect of the league. Maybe so they approach us a lot differently instead of teams nowadays wanting to trying to outplay us like they did try last season. They tried to literally outplay us because they thought we weren't as good as what we were, and they suffered majorly because we were open and we split them. Now they're like, right, okay, no, Arsenal are a serious football club. We need to soak up the pressure and try and beat them on a counter, and that's what a lot of teams have been doing. And I know Fulham did it. Well, Fulham did it amazingly well. If anything, they went down to 10 men and still got a goal. But those sorts of players, we're facing different opposition now. But yeah, going back to the lineup. Sorry. It did worry me. The thing that was worrying me the most was the Ødegaard situation. And second I saw him not in it, I lost all confidence. If anything, I was still hoping we'd win. It was more hope than genuine feeling. Yeah, that was it. What about you? What was your sort of thoughts when you saw it?
Well, I always get a little bit anxious when I see Eddie Nketiah in the lineup, and let me land before you start. Butchering me. But the issue with Arsenal isn't that we're lacking quality or isn't that we don't play a good brand of football. It's that we're not finishing our dinner and we're not really creating many goal-scoring opportunities. And one of the big issues with that is having a striker who's as inconsistent as Eddie Nketiah. Now, I love that we were very supportive, and rightly so, of... maybe supportive is the wrong word. We were giving his praises because it was due when he scored the hat-trick against Sheffield United. But my issue is that really? That's my issue. I don't want to see you scoring hat-tricks against Sheffield United. I want to see you scoring in the big games. I want to see you turning up in the big moments. And, that's the next step for Eddie. And actually, it's not really the next step. It is the step. That's the step where he should be on right now. This isn't someone who's 21 years old. He's 24 years old. He's entering his prime. It's really now or never for Eddie. And it upsets me a little bit that we are left with Eddie Nketiah as a replacement for Gabriel Jesus in a team that is so heavily reliant on the centre forward, who not only needs to be running in between the lines but also has to cut back oftentimes in order to support the build up. Nketiah is just not suited for this Arsenal team. The role that we demand, and it's not just that; it's also just having the lack of I don't know, target man awareness or the instincts. I don't know. Maybe I'm being too harsh, but there were a number of opportunities in that game for him to either
Get involved,
pose
get in
a
space. Yeah,
yeah,
draw a
but just
player.
like the 50-50 aerial duels that and I get it, he was up against Dan Burns, not many players are going to win 50-50s against him, but there was no like aggression, there was no desire to want to win the ball in the air. And as a striker, this is why I've been screaming up for a big physical target man, because that's what we're missing. Arsenal are so good at flinging the ball down the flanks and getting it into the box. All we're missing is someone in that middle of the pitch, in that middle of the box, to pose an issue. And that's where you see the conversions from that 25 set pieces.
Yeah.
It's from there. I do think if we had someone like Jesus, unfortunately we didn't. If we had someone like Jesus, it would be a different game. Because I do feel like we, for the most part, were very competitive. But again, just not good enough in the right spaces. Again, in midfield, I mean, why are we left with Jorginho in the middle? I rate the guy. I think he's great. I think he's got good quality. But we shouldn't be relying on Jorginho to carry our midfield. Declan Rice, it looked like he was the only man playing as the 8. Was he playing as an 8 or a 6 or an advanced 6?
He's
But
a bit of everything.
yeah,
He was
exactly. He
everywhere.
was a bit of everything, and that was the issue. I didn't see a partnership with Declan Rice. I just saw Declan Rice by himself, and then I saw Jorginho holding that line, moving the ball along, playing it side to side, and that was the issue. We needed a bit more. We needed more creativity, more speed. We needed to be a little bit more silky. The back four, more than happy with. A little bit concerned that we're not seeing Zinchenko. I don't know why. I don't know what's happened. Tomiyasu's done such a great job, but why not put Zinchenko in with Declan Rice? He does such a good job as an inverted left winger. Mentioned this last time with you and Adam. Why are we not experimenting with that? And then we're still yet to find the answers for David Raya and Ramsdale. It seems like Ramsdale had a poor game against West Ham. Obviously, the pressure is on him.
The thing is,
I,
you say
I,
the game,
yeah.
poor game with him. I remember a lot of people were going on about Ramsdale's that third goal, and when you actually watch that third goal back, he didn't even do bad. He actually read it correctly, but then it deflected off Kivior, and he had like 2.5 meters of space to deflect an absolute rocket from Jared Bowen, and he actually still got a hand to it. He didn't save it. I mean, 91 times out of maybe 100 times he'd save it. He didn't save it. I'm not too. I don't think it was actually. I think he got set up to foul that game, especially with the two left centre backs, the fullbacks being awful all game, and the midfield just being completely disjointed. They got isolated. But yeah, and to add on your
Yeah.
point with Eddie and Nketiah, the thing with Eddie, and I like Eddie.
Yeah.
The thing about him is with this sort of game, and it's things I've noticed. Like you said, like he's excellent when it comes to low blocks. He's so good at finding spaces, getting in, getting tricky. But when we come up a team that sort of matches us, he does struggle, because I think he struggles in those 1-to-1 situations, like you said, the 50-50s. But when it comes to just getting space in a crowded box, he's excellent at it. He's unreal. Like, just watch the sort of Sheffield United goal that he scored, the second one, where he pulled off Thomas and he was able to just draw a bang. He's quick and he can just flick it straight in. That's one thing, and I think to that game as a whole, we didn't play to his strengths. There were opportunities. Don't get me wrong. I'm not excusing Eddie. He definitely had opportunities to do something, but there were also things like the set pieces. what were we doing? We're doing all this fancy, trying to do all this trickery. Just put it in the bloody box, man. Do you know what I mean? Like, get an opportunity out of it at least. Cause the goalie to come out and maybe miss a punch, or just cause something, but at least get it over the bloody first man. Do you know what I mean? Like, don't just let it get cleared out. And we didn't really play to his strengths in that sense. So it was a bit frustrating for Eddie. But I don't think like he's not good enough for the club. I just think he's needed in particular games. Like if we go up against, say, Sheffield United, or we go up against a Palace who are going to do a low block, or we're going to go up against like a Wolves or something like that, Eddie's your guy. Eddie's perfect for it. When we go up against City, you know, like Tottenham this season, or like, I don't know, in the Champions League, like a big club, that's when Jesus is needed, because we need that panache, we need that extra quality. We need that ability to get the ball, turn on a man, touch it down from literally anywhere on the pitch at any angle, and run at a man and go one on one with him. Eddie doesn't have that. Eddie doesn't have that one on one, but he does have the ability to get into open space. It's a situationship, and I think there's a lot of. I feel like there's like clicks within the Arsenal team at the moment. So, for instance, like Ødegaard with Saka on that right side, that are phenomenal. When they're working together, they are phenomenal, and they really Saka becomes a better player when he's there, because Ødegaard can see him doing the plays he normally does, whereas Havertz just isolated Saka effectively. And Saka didn't have a great game either. I just feel like he didn't really have the trust or with Kai to be able to see him in those runs, so he maybe not have done it, or he just didn't do it. I'm not too sure. It could be whether he's tired.
Well, Saka only thrives when he's able to build those partnerships with Ben White and Odegaard. Saka thrives because, especially against a team like Newcastle, who you know are going to have two men on him, the only way to escape that is to support him, is to bring one of those players out of position, is to make those runs off the ball. And he didn't get any of that. So, you know, I have a lot of sympathy for Saka because I know the quality is there and I know the intelligence is there. Someone like Kai Havertz, on the other hand, I just don't know what's going on anymore. I just can't seem to grasp what's happened here. £60 million on someone who had something, lost it at Chelsea, and I feel like this was Arteta pinning all his hopes on a big risk, which is now slowly beginning to
unravel,
fade.
Yeah. I think we should have spent the
we're
money
gonna have
elsewhere.
I mean, look, we're gonna have a chat about Kai and his involvement in the game and all of that good stuff in a minute. But let's start by discussing the opening exchanges, the opening 10 minutes. I feel like there was, from the very first moment, it was really good tempo. Newcastle pressing forward, playing direct football, controlling possession in the opening couple of minutes, and they looked to be quite aggressive with their press as well, especially when they lost the ball. They had a very, very good discipline. In the opening 5 minutes, Newcastle delivered the ball into the box on 3 different occasions. They looked very confident and they were committing themselves forward. Us, on the other hand, we were struggling to keep up with the pace, but the game was starting to heat up in and around the 8th minute. I think both teams were going for 50-50s, and it was very, very physical. But I did feel like the passing was lacking in fluidity. The passing was, as I said at the beginning, there was just no real tempo to it. It was kind of like, you know, the passing lines were clear and we were completing our short passes accurately, but it was just far too predictable. We weren't looking for those inventive line breaking passes. We weren't looking to, hook the ball over the top and, surpass 2 or 3 Newcastle shots. It was very safe, very predictable, very, what's the word I'm looking for?
Mundane.
No, yeah, kind of like static. Yeah, just yeah.
It was safe.
I just
very
felt
safe.
like, yeah, very safe. How do you feel like the first sort of opening 10 minutes were?
Honestly, the first 10 minutes weren't too bad. I think it was an even competitive is the word I'd say for it. I mean, like you said, Newcastle were coming forward, but I think defensively we still looked solid. Like, although they were coming forward, I wasn't worried. I genuinely wasn't like, oh, that was a scary opportunity there. And I think Gabriel and Seba, we know what they can do. They're brilliant at it. They're really good. They're even under high pressure situations. They're amazing. I remember Saliba as well. I think maybe it was a little bit later, but when he had that in that moment, he was like mad, being pressed by like two Newcastle players, and just turns one out, passes it on to Ben White. Ben White goes out, and it's just they're so calm. They're so calm. As well, I think in midfield, the two that really stood out for me in the first sort of moments, although like I'm in an iron about Jorginho prior. He did look calm when he received the ball. There was a lot of franticness in that first 15 minutes, and Jorginho was definitely one of the calmest. Every time he got the ball, the game sort of slowed down a little bit, which is what I appreciated him, because it was very like, oh, it was here, and it was intercepted, and here, and it was going here, then it was change of possession here and there and there. When Jorginho got it, was like, right, I got the ball, turn, look, pass, get the ball back, look, turn, pass. He was just keeping it like calm, which was it was an experience. It's an experience. What's what an experienced player does. It's a frantic game. The fans were on the case as well. So, and as well, I just think everyone saw in that first couple of minutes, Declan Rice. This guy's a unicorn. He can dribble, pass, tackle, run, sweep. Is there anything this guy can't do? Is there anything that this guy cannot do? I mean, the amount of chances that sort of Newcastle were trying to get from their midfield to their front line, that Declan Rice would just snuff out. It was just there before they could even think about it. And he was lightning quick throughout the game. I saw him track back on multiple occasions, filling the space where Tomiyasu was. He would even fill in sometimes for Gabriel when he got pushed out wide. He was everywhere. He was everywhere. He's an amazing player, and he's probably one of the only players I think this season that people have, considering the price that we paid for him, no one's mentioned it. No one's mentioned it because he's worth it. He's worth every single penny. And off the bat, he was just so calm. He's so composed. He makes us such a better team. And it was just good to see. It was good to see. I mean, he was definitely I would say our creator from the midfield, and just from the first 10 minutes, it was looking like this is going to be a Declan Rice sort of game in the midfield. And the one thing I didn't really see much. I mean, Kai was winning his 50-50 duels. I have to give him credit where it's due. He was winning his 50-50 duels, but he wasn't. Just wasn't daring. He was just playing very safe, wanted to be very secure, and that's sort of seen it. And the front line, they were out of it. We didn't do nothing in that first 15 minutes. So Martinelli, Eddie, Saka, a bit of a stinker. I feel like they just needed to get into the game a bit more. Maybe come back, receive the ball, get involved. Didn't really see that much. But the first 10, 15 minutes, it was a competitive game from both sides. Newcastle weren't at their best. We weren't at our best. And it was going to come down to a case of who's got the individual brilliance to just like you said, to split those lines, put those passes through. And we lacked it.
Yeah, we have to remember that Newcastle were without a good few key individuals, who would otherwise make them tick in and around the middle of the park and even in the final third. I mean, if we have a look at the absentees, they were without Harvey Barnes, Sven Botman, Isak, Matt Target, or maybe not Matt Target, but Sandro Tonali, a big one. So, just bearing that in mind, despite that, they were still managing to be very, physical, competitive, ambitious. And I love that. I love that about our side. I love a team who can go out there and lay everything on the line. An optimistic side as opposed to a pessimistic side. I always feel like football matches are made to entertain and made to be watched by fans when two teams are going at it. It should always be that way. But I have to be frank and honest, and I feel like had Arsenal been without Declan Rice and William Saliba, they would have, I think anyway, in the first opening 10, 15, 20 minutes, even throughout the game, we would have been turned over quite easily. At the back, Saliba was just instrumental. Again, I don't think anyone managed to dribble past him. Managing to win most of his 50-50s, his aerial duels as well. And, Declan Rice, I mean, I made a note of this to mention it specifically. Probably the only player who was able to play at the level required. the right intensity in order
Mhm.
to dominate, in order to win that, in order to win that tug of war. But yeah, ultimately, first 15 minutes, very intense, very physical, very back and forth. And then the game started to simmer down a little bit. It seemed like the fiery opening 10-minute exchanges turned into a slow burner, a bit more patience from both sides, happy to play the long game. And unlike last season, playing out from the back, which was really smooth and silky, suddenly became a little bit more difficult to watch. Touches and passing weren't as smooth that we were seeing last season. It was kind of almost like a ooh moment, or
Mhm.
Ray lucky to get that touch right, or Ben White making that pass at the right time. Maybe it was purposeful, but it just didn't fill me with confidence. There was a moment, I think in the 18th minute, a lovely striding run from Declan Rice, cuts through the midfield with
Yeah, I
ease,
remember that. Yeah.
plays the ball out to Nketiah, who doesn't really do the run any justice. Chances kept alive by Martinelli, puts in a cross for Nketiah, who's battling with Burns, and unfortunately, there's only one winner in that. So, yeah, Declan Rice was definitely, I think, the only bright spark in that midfield. We obviously spoke about the impact that someone like Martin Odegaard has, but we still had Jorginho and Kai Havertz playing alongside Declan Rice. I'm guessing, Havertz trying to play Odegaard's role. Let's have a chat about him and let's try and assess what happened. I mean, I think it's fair to say that this game was one on perseverance, but also there was a lot of emotional um, advantage played towards Newcastle. Them being at home, certain decisions going for them, and really having quite an advantageous day in the referee's book. Someone who I felt like was very lucky to be on the pitch, and I know this one's up for debate, but Kai Havertz could have been sent off in the 36th minute with a reckless foul on Longstaff. The intention was innocent, but the delivery was really quite naive and reckless, in my opinion.
Mhm.
And the Newcastle players, rightly so, were outraged. Gordon, Longstaff, and Shaw, booked for protesting, but that really got everyone riled up. And it reminded me of when we played Liverpool last season.
Yeah.
We were winning, and then all of a sudden, a moment of madness riled the fans up,
Was that the
and the
Arteta
game kind of
Arteta with
changed on
Klopp?
its head. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was a crazy game. No, I think you're right. It changed from that moment. With Havertz, I think there was a few players that were lucky to be on that pitch. Full stop. I think Bruno Guimaraes and well on their team with an elbow in the back of Jorginho's head
yeah,
twice. He was very lucky to be on that pitch. Full stop. Again, Kai Havertz, like you said, it wasn't. It was like he was trying too hard. Do you know what I mean? He was like he really wanted the ball, and I love that he wanted the ball back. Sometimes and I think Gary Neville said it. Not for the Arsenal game, but he said it. I think for the Man United game when I was watching them, and he was talking about their player Anthony, and he was like, for times like this, you just have to just keep your head up, make that tracking back run, and stay on your feet. You just have to stay on your feet. Like you can't be putting in reckless tackles like that, especially away from home, because you're going to rile up the fans if you do big challenges. So yeah, it was a bit of a not a rookie error. I know he's not rookie, but it felt like one. It was just like a naive sort of ball. As well with the sort of first 15 minutes, well, no, sorry, the second sort of 30 minutes, there was a lot of disjointed play going on, especially on the set pieces. It was just, everything was so static. It was a case of everyone was just stands in the position, but there was no splitting runs going in. There was loads of short corners, like passing to the close man, but then nothing coming from it. Do you know what I mean? They were passing short, but they were still not putting the ball in the box. It was like, what are you doing?
mm,
And I remember there's one. It's when we had the ball sort of on the outside, and the ball got to Havertz, and Havertz was sort of standing on the edge of the box, and he was like, at that moment, I was literally like,
yeah,
just shoot, mate. Just honestly, just shoot. Like at least just keep the goalie honest, keep him honest, and keep the defenders on their toes. Because if you start peppering shots from outside, what that does is then the midfielder goes right next time. If he's in that position, I need to close it down. I need to maybe get a foot in and try and close down. What that then does is that you can go for a dummy. If he's coming towards you as you're going to shoot, you can just dummy and go past. It opens up other opportunities. You need to pepper the goalie, and it was just it was like we got beaten by the occasion. I feel like the sort of the pressure of the day, and I mean Arteta said it in the post conference. This is a huge game. There's such tiny margins. I mean we can sit here and nitpick, but on the field it is so close, and it's the finest little margins that win games. And the split decisions and 0.5 second reactions, and do you know what I mean? All these like little things, and we just failed to dominate the game. We wasn't able to impose ourselves, because normally actually our away form has been better than our home form at times, and the way that our fans have been able to generate atmosphere away from home, we just weren't able to do it. We just weren't able to do it, and I don't know what it was. I think it's just purely the personnel. I don't necessarily think. I don't. It's not the case. I don't think the personnel aren't good enough. I just think the personnel that we had, and we weren't. It's not like we had a luxury of choices because of injuries. I just don't think they worked. They were getting beat. They weren't the cohesion. Whereas like, so for instance, I remember when you were saying just earlier, there was that sort of, you said how Declan Rice was the only player on the pitch who did the required effort. You know what I mean? He was putting in the required level. Normally that level comes off Martin Ødegaard because he's our captain, and you can see him visually on the pitch being like run on, like can't go. I mean, like come on, like press, and he gets the fans involved. He starts. We didn't have that. We just didn't have that. And we certainly weren't getting it from the back. Saka wasn't, because Saka's never been like a team leader. He just leads by example. You just let him get on with his thing. Whereas like Martin Ødegaard was so crucial for us. If anything, it just highlighted things that we're lacking, and the fact that Emil Smith-Rowe was injured, I think that was huge, because if Emil Smith-Rowe was fit, I would have had Emil Smith-Rowe and Ødegaard if they were both fit. They would have been my midfield with Declan Rice. But we can sit here and talk about what we could have done, should have done all the time, but frankly, we just wasn't good enough. And then we started getting sort of the ball started turning on us. They tried disrupting us, but the one thing I did say after, especially after sort of that Havertz sort of tackle as well, they really tried to unsettle us throughout the game. And the one thing that I did rate about the performance, although we didn't win, was that we did keep composed. We kept very composed. That was a game maybe 2 years ago. We would have had 2 red cards, a couple of players sent off, lost our heads. Players like Xhaka stick to my mind when I think of moments like that. And even though Havertz did a reckless tackle and people were in his face, he still just calmly dealt with it, which you know what, I give him credit for. And he actually drew two yellow cards out of it, so you can't go wrong. But I feel like, Newcastle tried to disrupt us. We didn't allow them to, but we just didn't execute well enough to really exploit that. Because we if anything, we had them riled up, not the other way around. And we just didn't take advantage of it.
Yeah, I mean, look, we riled them up, and they ended up getting the 3 points. So it must tell you something about getting riled up. And I have to say, normally I don't like to discuss officiating or call out referees or use it as an excuse. But I really felt like that the officiating in that game from both angles was just really, really, really low. Players on both sides should have been booked, weren't. Decisions going against both sides when it should have. The obvious one being the goal, which we're going to talk about. But I wrote this down. I remember very vividly watching Dan Burns' cynical knee foul from behind on Saka on the half-hour mark. A minute later, he does another one, sticks his foot out and trips Saka up. Doesn't get a yellow card for either of them. And we've seen it before. Given on our side, players committing 2 really soft fouls and it resulting with a sending off. So and again, Grammarish, I felt like was a very, very, very lucky boy to be on the pitch. He was all over the place, especially near the end of that first half.
He needed
but that Havertz, he did need that half time. But that Havertz reckless foul was the beginning of that, I guess, everything spiraling out. On the 39th minute, Rice with a foul on Gumaraj, which was a 50-50, but in that atmosphere, the referee was obliged to give it to them. And then Gumaraj with an elbow to the head of Jorginho. VAR looked at it, but nothing was given because apparently it's okay to just elbow people in the head now. you know,
Yeah, it's baffling. Baffling.
It's in the 47th minute. Gumaraj with a close range shot on Havertz for no reason whatsoever, just out of frustration. Him and Rice coming face to face again. Referee doesn't do anything about it. It's just bonkers. In that sort of situation, when two players come face to face, if you don't, if you feel like you're afraid to book one of the players, book them both. He doesn't book any of them, and Gumaraj is allowed to leave that half without receiving a yellow card. So, look, I think all in all, if we're talking from a live perspective, watching the game in real time, that first half we would be quite happy with, wouldn't we?
Yeah. Like I said, it was 50-50. There wasn't any clinicalness from both teams. It felt like it was a game that needed an experienced, composed player to come in and just like guide the team, or like a half team, like a team talk. So like coming into that second half, I was expecting us pre-game when I saw the lineup. I was expecting us to already be losing at this stage. If I'm going to be honest, the way that I saw Newcastle play Man United, I was like, shit. Like this is the fact that we went into 0-0, kept our composure, which was the one thing I liked the most. I was optimistic for the second half. I was optimistic. I did think that we could potentially come out and maybe do something. Obviously, it came out and turned out differently. But it was good.
That sound can only mean one thing. We've arrived at the halfway point, where I'll be taking you, Monty, into the second half. But before I do that, can you summarize that first half in one word?
Frantic.
Frantic. Good word. Okay, so second half, Newcastle make a substitution. They bring on Livramento for Dan Burn. Seems to do the trick because he kept Martinelli very quiet. I did feel like the second half was started quite similarly to the first. Quick burst of energy, directness, intent on getting the ball as deep into our half as possible. And then 4 minutes in, Havertz with another really awful challenge, which really could have seen him sent off. Sliding into a player, I mean, just really, really reckless. I think this is a good opportunity for us to talk about Kai Havertz and what he brings to the Arsenal midfield. Because I, for one, frankly, I've lost patience with him. Really, I don't think he's the person. He's the right person for our midfield. I think he's unbelievably static, passive. Doesn't run between the lines to help open up any channels or any defend. He doesn't do anything to pull defenses apart. He is far too safe for my liking, and sometimes, most of the time, even the basics he doesn't get right. The only benefit I see of having someone like Havertz is his aerial dominance. I think it's because he's one of the tallest players in the squad. He's able to bring the balls down. When it's been flung forward. I didn't see much from Havertz. I felt like he was a huge anchor in a bad way, as in weighing us down, pulling us down. And he I don't know, it was counterproductive having him there because whilst we were trying to move the ball really quickly, trying to get it down the channels, trying to unlock certain zones on the pitch, you had Havertz there, who would either make an error, not be positioned in the right place, or not make the timely run needed in order to continue that phase of play. Why do you think Arteta kept him on for the entire 90?
Well, the thing is, funny you say that. I remember sort of coming out of the game. Like I said, my head was hot, and I was very. I would say I was a little bit unfair on Havertz. I mean, don't get me wrong, because when you actually look at his game metrically, he actually had quite a good game. I mean, I think he had the most pressures on the team. He was doing loads of stuff off the ball, but it's like what you said. Like he's actually a decent player, but I think he just doesn't suit our system at all. When I see Havertz, I see a second striker who needs a striker alongside him. He needs him to, because what he can do, like I said, he can aerially bring it down. He can pass it on to the guy next to him, and then he can make that second run on. He can turn the man, and then he can do it. But he can't do that in his system. He doesn't work in a 4-3-3. I just don't think he works there. And like I said, people were like, oh, but he was creating some chances, did some passes, but he didn't really execute them properly. Do you know what I mean? That they were like, and I know one that sticks out to me the most is when Trossard came on towards the end of the game, and he had the ball coming over him, and Trossard was through. He was through, and all he had to do was just lightly pull it forward to him, and he just banged it, and it went straight over to Pope, and I was like, oh man, like it was those moments. Like although metrically he put a game on, and some people on Twitter were like really staunchly defending him, I am where I'm at with Havertz is spent a lot of money on him, and I get that's not his fault, right? That's not his fault. We overpaid for a player who hasn't proven himself. Yes, he scored a Champions League goal. So, Mario Götze scored a goal in the World Cup. He still wasn't actually that world class. He was okay, but it wasn't that. It just glossed over what he really was. And then you've got Kai Havertz, where we put him in for this money, and he just hasn't done anything. Like converts it. Yeah, there are pockets of moments, but the question is, how long do you wait for those pockets of moments to keep you going until you go, I'm done. I mean, we've done it before. We bought Pepe. Even Pepe, right? He got ridiculed. But even Pepe scored. Pepe scored and assisted. His actual goal distribution was actually pretty good. Like goal per minute was something like, I think it was like 128 minutes, which isn't bad for a goal or assist. Kai Havertz has got 1 goal, 1 assist. That's it. And that 1 goal was on a penalty. He's done nothing from open play. He hasn't really created much. And
It's the
just
final
frustrates
third
me.
play, isn't it? It's the
Yeah,
final third play which is the most frustrating because he, for all the good work that he does off the ball, presses and
and his
attempts to win the
tackles are
ball
actually
back, and
good as well.
oftentimes he wins those balls back, and oftentimes he plays the ball forward and he plays those simple passes down the channels. But we need the magical, 8 to do something on the edge of the box. Like Trossard came on, and as
Yeah.
bad as he did on the corners, he was making things happen. He was, moving left, right, center, dropping his shoulder, trying really hard to just find that bit of space needed to poke that ball into the box. Havertz doesn't have that. I find it really difficult trying to imagine a world where Kai Havertz is the the creator, the architect. I just think he's very much a passenger, and right now at Arsenal we don't need that. Maybe a few seasons ago
Yeah.
it'd be perfect, but right now I think he's a very very big anchor pulling us all down.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that, and I think with that midfield as well. Like for instance, if Jorginho stepped out of that game and say Odegaard was available and Declan Rice went into that 6 and Havertz played alongside Odegaard, I think Odegaard and Havertz can actually work because you've got the presence in Havertz. He can bring the ball down. He can be that tall, empowering player, and he can get the ball. He can get the ball to Odegaard in space. When Odegaard's get the ball in space, that's when he's dangerous, and that's when he unlocks our front three. But when you're relying on all the creativity to come from Havertz, we struggled. We struggled big time. He was trying, and I'm not trying to be. I don't want to be that guy that's just pointing at him just because it's easy. I'm trying to be constructive, and I do sincerely hope that he does prove me wrong. I mean, I think all of us want him to do good, but he hasn't done it enough. And weirdly, someone on Twitter yesterday was trying to compare Thierry Henry and about how he took a while to shine and come into a thing. And I just went, sorry, what?
Oh dear.
I just went, what do you mean? Like with Henry, yes, it took a while, but you could see there was a
Yeah,
player there, and he
he
not
had the
only
it
did he,
factor.
yeah, he had it. He changed his whole position. He recreated he pretty much designed the modern inside forward by himself, and you could see that. You could see that, and he had the players around him and the system around him that worked. Kai Havertz has not once proved to me, or at least given me a strong inkling. Like, let's say, for instance, he I don't know, against like City or something like that. Got the ball, turned, done Rodri, popped it over to Saka, came in for the 1-2 and the return, and like got the header and hit the post or something like that. He's not done anything like that. The guy doesn't even shoot. He doesn't even shoot, which frustrates the hell out of me. Like this, I remember one of the biggest ones was against Sheffield United when we were, I think, 4-0 up, and he had the perfect opportunity to shoot from like here to 2 meters away from the goal at the back post, and he just passes it back across to Eddie Nketiah. I'm like, mate, you've got a direct shot, and it's a confidence thing. But the thing is, how much do you want to pay a week, and how long do you want to wait until he finds his confidence? Because when I look at it, I personally think we could have maybe bought a player like Douglas Luiz, who has more direct threat, like not just in free kicks and stuff like that, but he is a lot more dynamic going forward than maybe someone like Kai Havertz. But again, I am trying to find some good things of Kai, and like I said, he does those off the ball movements. But it's like he has this mental block on himself. He doesn't back himself, and the fact is, we can back him. The fans can back him. But if you don't back yourself, he doesn't give me the era or the aura of a player who backs himself. Like you, as a striker, you're not going to score every single goal in the world and every shot. It's impossible. It's not going to happen. No one expects you to do that. But the fact is, what fans want to see is that at least you tried it. Do you know what I mean? If you try it, it means you've got the confidence to do it. You might not score a 37-yard screamer, but if it comes off and it's like I don't know, half a yard out of goal, even a fan will be like, whoa, good shot. Do you know what I mean? Like, well done. Like, the confidence comes off it. When he's like throwing passes away that should be shots, and he's passing when that just gives me, that just bleeds all the sort of hope I have in him, really. And I'm thinking now, how long do we hold out for him to get on? That's what I'd kind of ask you. How long for you until you go, right, you're not in the first team?
Well, I've checked out now. I think I checked out a while ago. I think, just if you look at the situation that we're in now, we desperately needed a midfielder to come into that game. We desperately needed a centre forward, 2 players who we missed out on signing in the summer transfer window. Had we not signed Kai Havertz, we could have signed a central midfielder and we could have signed a striker. 2 positions that the club are now, funnily enough, invested in for either January or the summer. So it was a massive gamble that Arteta played. It has not paid off. What the consequences of that are yet to be seen, but the immediate consequences of that were clearly seen because we've lost 1-0 to Newcastle. And I'm not blaming that solely on Kai Havertz, but the missing presence in midfield had a big part to play in not being able to do enough on the edge of the box. And that was the story of the game. It was not doing enough on the edge of the box. It was not committing enough. It was not taking enough risks. It was far too safe. And this moment that I'm about to talk about epitomized the game. It was a really, really good free kick with White sending it long. It wasn't dealt with by Newcastle. Instead, Tomiyasu gets a touch, plays it to Nketiah, and Nketiah completely miskicks it. Gives the ball to Newcastle, and it's an opportunity for them to break away. Luckily, Gordon is forced wide. His shot's deflected off by White, but that could have been 1-0 Newcastle, and that easily could have been 1-0 Arsenal. For Eddie to score from there is a lot to ask. I get it, but he completely miskicks the ball, and so my issues in this game wasn't the fact that we didn't perform well enough, or we weren't competitive enough, or we were silly in the way that we gave a goal away. It was not having the right personnel despite having injuries. At this moment, right now, having finished second last season, we should have a fully booked out squad of really good players. We shouldn't need to be worrying right now about players getting injured because we should have individuals who are nearly good enough to be pushing into the first team. Now, when you look at the bench, across the bench, we do have quite a strong bench. We do have individuals who are ready to play first team football. Trossard, Zinchenko, Kivior's very close. Nelson, when he comes on, he does. He's an impact player. He does really well. But you look at the starting lineup against Newcastle and the problems that we had with specifically Kai Havertz, Nketiah, Jorginho, maybe I'm being harsh, but it's just not good enough. And I think Arsenal right now are at a point where they need to really look at the makeup of they need to revisit the makeup of the squad, and they need to make some
Yeah.
tough decisions, not just on individuals, but also where are they playing. Like if Havertz isn't good enough to play in midfield, play him as a second striker, or better still, in the final few minutes of the game when he was forced out wide on the left hand side, he was putting in some decent crosses into the box, you know, and with the right personnel in the middle, could have converted to something. But yeah, anyway, that's my rant over with Kai Havertz. So I think we can move on to talk about the rest of the game. I'll tell you someone who I was quite what's the word I'm looking for? Impressed with
Yup.
was Tomiyasu.
Yep.
I think he was really instrumental in keeping us fluid on the edge of the box. And when we're talking about supporting acts and players who need to support the wingers, you've got Odegaard who does a really nice job helping Saka out on the right hand side. And I feel like Tommy did that with Martinelli on some occasions. He's playing that inverted left sided role really, really nicely. Obviously, didn't do enough in order to get us to create those goal scoring opportunities. But he's keeping Zinchenko out of the team, which raises a lot of eyebrows, as to
Mm-hmm.
what Arteta's thinking in his brain. Because a few weeks ago you'd be mad to drop Zinchenko out. What do you think has happened in the last few weeks? Why is Arteta preferring Tomiyasu over Zinchenko?
I think it was purely a situation of the game. I mean, Almiron this season's been solid. Newcastle have been dangerous going forward, and we needed that solidness. And the thing about Tomiyasu, what he always lacked compared to Zinchenko, was he definitely didn't have what's the word for it? He didn't have that the attacking ability as Zinchenko. But what we've definitely seen him incorporate, and maybe learn from the horse's mouth himself, he's been able to adapt a new sort of style into his play. He's been able to come inside. He's been able to invert more. He feels a lot more comfortable at his feet, and because of his just pure defensive ability, he's more reliable. I mean, like at the first and foremost, your job as a defender is to defend. Although Zinchenko is excellent going forward, he is amazing going forward. He's probably one of the best in the league when it comes to being able to sit into a midfield and add that extra man. But what he does lack is the defensive ability. Even though when he did come on, he actually did play quite solid. So I can't discredit him because he did come in and poach some key tackles. But Tomiyasu, solid. Tomiyasu's solid, and it's actually interesting you say that as well. And it baffles me sometimes. I keep forgetting. But when I was saying in a space yesterday, if Urine Timber was available today and he was fit, right, and it's a crazy thing because sometimes we forget that we've even got him in our squad. I think we'd have won that game. I genuinely think we'd have won that game because the thing like Urine Timber, and this is Urine Timber is basically what the player Arteta really wants, because Urine Timber is just as technically gifted as Zinchenko, but he's tall, physical, sharp, and defensively solid like Tomiyasu. He's like the best of both into one, and I think that's kind of what we miss because as a whole, I think we actually dominated the midfield for the majority of the game. I think we kind of won that battle. But what we lacked, and like you said, was getting to that centre of the box. It was putting that ball in. But if we had the extra man in upfield and it allows Rice and to Jorginho to step up a little bit more, I think that's where we would have seen it more. Because Tomiyasu was a bit further wide throughout the game. He was trying to support Martinelli, which is fair. Zinchenko, when he came on, sorry, not Zinchenko, but when Tomiyasu, when he was like there, he wasn't able to get involved. He wasn't able to push up the field. But whereas like Urine Timber, if he comes in, he does the Zinchenko role. He comes in, he basically becomes that six, and then Jorginho moves forward with Rice, and then you have Havertz, who kind of becomes a second striker in that sort of space in between the striker and the eights. And we weren't really able to do that. We just weren't able to do it, and I think that was the main issue. And we've got the big squad, and like you said, we went into summer spending all this money, and yet we're still here in January hoping for 2 more players when we should have had this covered. Really, okay, it might be controversial, but I'm going to say anyway. I genuinely think if we kept Charlie Patino, I think he
Yeah.
would have done a better job than what Havertz is doing now. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't have sent Patino on loan, because I think if I've watched him this season at Swansea, he's doing excellent. He's doing absolutely amazing, and we're going to have an absolute gem on our hands. And I can't wait for him to play, because he reminds me more and more of Cesc Fabregas. It's a joke. But yeah, I think we need another creative 8. That's what we just didn't have it. We just didn't have it, and we missed it from Erdegaard. And if we have 2, like what we need right now is like a Cazorla. Do you know what I mean? We need that tricky little player, low centre gravity. That's why I like Emil Smith Rowe, because he does not. I'm not comparing him to Santi Cazorla, because Santi Cazorla is just technically magnificent, but he has similarities in the sense that he keeps the ball low to him. He keeps his shoulders low. He can turn and duck and weave.
Yeah.
He can move quickly. We didn't have that. We don't have that. And Kai Havertz is not your guy to skill a man, turn quickly. He's tall. He's like Kai Havertz is he's like 6'3" or 6'2". He's a tall player. And speaking of height, actually, I think that leads on quite nicely to what I think was the biggest issue for the goal that we conceded. And it's the guy in between the sticks. And his name is David Raya. And again, caught slacking on an aggressive positioning. Now, if you're 6'5" and you're a bit taller, you can maybe get away with it. He's not that. He's only 6 foot, and for a goalie, that's short. That's short. I mean, Declan Rice is taller than him. Just kind of got. And you're as a goalkeeper, you should be the tallest. And again, aggressive positioning. The same thing happened for Nketiah Mudryk against Chelsea. Got beaten. I mean, don't get me wrong. The goal shouldn't have happened. It shouldn't have stood anyway. But the fact is, it did. And if I'm thinking, if that was Ramsdale, that would have been stopped.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny you mentioned that, because the first thing that came to my mind when I watched that goal was, what's David Raya doing? Why is he flailing around? I didn't want to say anything, because I didn't want to be the only one who was maybe thinking that. But since you've said that, it turns out that actually, and I'm just rewatching that goal again. Willock obviously brings the ball back from outside of the line. Yeah, I don't know. I just don't know what he's doing. Again, it's the same positional error as it was against. It's exactly the same. He's not in the center. He's not. He's far too. He's far too close to his near post. He's got. It's exactly the same problem.
There's 2 people behind him on his back.
With the Mudryk goal, it was Sterling on the back post, which he didn't cover. He didn't have covered. In this particular scenario, it's Joe Linton in the far post, and I don't know why he's so concerned about being at his near post. The ball is not going to go in unless he's going to take a shot, in which case you will know, because you're a goalkeeper.
Stop it.
Right. So yeah, you're bang on. You're bang on the money when you talk about, and a lot of people won't say it because it's David Raya, because we don't want to upset, or we don't want to tussle any feathers. But coming on to the goal, and the goal which ultimately, gave the 3 points to Newcastle. I say gave wholehandedly, in a really nicely packaged fruit basket, or whatever you want to imagine is in that basket, hand plated it to them. Now, the goal itself, I think we can criticize us on a few things, because I think it was a little bit of sloppy play during the build-up. It's a long ball for Joe Linton, which Gabriel fails to deal with. And again, he's had 2 other occasions, I can't remember when they were, where he's miskicked the ball and it's ended up in the back of the net. So he fails to deal with it. The loose ball falls to Murphy. Plays the ball. He has a shot, but it goes across the face of goal. It goes out. Despite that, Willock puts the ball back into the box. Joe Linton pushes Gabriel, which apparently isn't a foul. And then the ball falls kindly to Gordon, who taps it in. So I don't understand how we have arrived at a point where 3 different issues glaringly clear. Okay, let's we have to be a little bit unbiased here. I know as Arsenal fans we're hurting. We want to be pointing fingers here, there, and everywhere. But that ball was out of play. And I'm sorry if rival fans want to banter us or want to play devil's advocate or want to rile us up. that ball was out of play. You don't need multiple camera angles to see using your eyes that the white line was clear as the ball was passed over the line. I don't know what argument that pundits are trying to have about camera angles, about the circumference of the ball and where it meets. The ball was out. It was out because
Yeah.
we can see it. We can see a patch of grass
In
between
between
the
the ball and
ball
the white line, yeah.
and the white line. So that's number one. Number one, that is glaringly obvious. Number two, the foul on Joe Linton. Okay, ambiguous, you could say, because in a situation like that, physicality is needed in order to beat the defender. But I would pose the argument that when you've got two hands on a player and when you're pushing the forward motion and you're forcing them onto the ground, Gary Neville tried to make the point that he was going for a low header. It doesn't matter. That's it's besides the point. The player had two hands on him, pushing him forward. It's considered a foul, so that should have been given. More ambiguous, I understand. Then we're hearing that VAR they
Offside,
don't
yeah.
have a camera angle to see that offside. You're telling me in the 21st century where anything and everything can be created in order to, I mean, have a look at cricket, have a look at NFL, have a look at any other
Yeah,
sport. There are
literally.
there are technological ways to see every inch of that of any sort of pitch, whether it's animated, whether it's CGI, whether it's drones put in the air. There is no excuse for you to not be able to see any angle on the pitch when it's being televised to millions of people, potentially billions of people around the world. This is the Premier League, for goodness sake. There needs to be standards, there needs to be levels. The goal is given at the end of the day after three separate offences, and I myself cannot believe I'm sitting here debating whether this was a goal or not.
No, it's again,
Bomb.
it was
I'll drop the
just
bomb. I'll drop the mic.
no, and I think you're spot on. It's the game screamed 0-0. That game deserved to end 0-0 because both teams didn't really do anything that dangerous, and we could say it, we got robbed basically. I mean, but I say we got robbed, and I mean I can be in the refs caused us and whatever. Again, not defending us. We weren't good enough. We simply weren't good enough. We didn't deserve to win that game, but we didn't deserve to lose. And like you said, with the instances, today being 2023, and it's just again, why are we facing this again? Why are we having to talk about the refs again? This is 2023. This is supposed to be meant to be the home of football, the best league in the world. Yet we've got some of the worst managers going. Refs, and that's a reason why only
You're not
one
wrong
of
about
them.
managers.
Yeah, which was the only reason there was one, which was Mark Oliver, who got selected to go to the World Cup, because no one rates English managers, and the PGMO has got to be one of the most crooked, chummy, best friends clubs going out there that just defend their players, and there's some really suspect decisions, and there's loads of what's the word for it? Conspiracy theories out there regarding Newcastle and City and PGMO, but no, it was poor, and I think I completely wholeheartedly. And to know what, it was actually the best thing out of that game was Mikel Arteta's post game
Yeah, I was going to ask you
press
about his
conference,
comments.
because I was fuming. I was fuming after that game. I was just disappointed. I was angry, and I was just fuming. I was just fuming. And honestly, listening to Mikel Arteta publicly, and I mean, he's probably going to get a world record fine coming his way. And do you know what? I know he doesn't care, and I love that he doesn't care, because I literally just went, "That's my fucking manager." Sorry, excuse my French. I was like, "That's my guy." Because he just went out on TV and went, "I am embarrassed. I am ashamed that this is the place where it's meant to be the home of the best football league, and we've got this. I don't know how that's gone. It's disgraceful." And I was like, "Yeah, you tell him. You tell him," because it was. We're fed up with it. I think a lot of fans are a grievance with referees, and don't get me wrong, there'll always be human errors and things, and that happens, right? But that's what VAR is for. It's to get out the human errors, right? And then it's not a case of it's a situational foul. Some might call it a foul, some might not. That happens, right? But when you have three individual instances where they were all, well, the ball was out, It was offside, and it was a foul, and yet you've still given a goal. How does that happen? How do you go through 3 phases? It's not like the Liverpool game. Well, the Liverpool game they just completely miscommunicated and said it wasn't a goal, and they said play on. They said it was a goal, and so continue. This time they looked at 3 different things, and it's like the VAR room was scared to go against the ref. It's like, why? Like, why? And I think it was Michael. Was it Mike Oliver yesterday?
No.
It was
Was it Oliver in the VAR room?
no in on the pitch. I
No,
don't
it
think
wasn't.
it
It was
was because you got sort of like
what's the
it's like the
twat's
big
name?
4, and then when you had a thingy get demoted down to the championship, which is crazy. You had Oliver Friend, Michael.
Yeah.
Is it Michael Oliver Friend? Yeah, they're like the big 4, and no one challenges them. It feels like the VAR room's just sort of scared to do so. And it's like, mate, that's your job. Like, and I think the key thing you said, like in rugby, cricket, it doesn't matter if they take 5-6 minutes to calculate. They will come to a right decision. Like in rugby, they will break it down bit by bit, and the thing that they have, which I honestly I think this would actually stop pretty much all the if buts and maybes. Mic'd refs.
Yeah.
Why can't we hear what the conversation's going? In rugby, they do it and it works. Everyone loves it. Everyone loves it. And not just that, it also means the players can't shout, can't swear because you can hear it. And if they hear it, they get, well, in rugby you get sent off. There's no oh, don't do that. It's you get sent off. Which they don't have in football, which is frustrating. But yeah, we can talk and sit about how we got cheated by things, but again, we weren't good enough. Simply weren't good enough in the game. The goal itself shouldn't have been a goal, and I personally just believe the goal should have ended 0-0. The game should have ended, and that's what the game was looking like, was offering. And yet somehow Newcastle come out with 3 points, but we can nitpick, we can look at the past and be like, oh, this is a bad. It was a bad game, but we have to now look forward to the next game. We have to pick our heads up. We have to take this, and we have to continue. The season's not over yet. We've got many games coming up ahead, and we just have to start again. Really, we have to start again. But what I don't want is that come the end of the season, we're 1 point from winning the title or something like that, and we look back at this Newcastle game, and it's a case of, well, we could have done that because we've got what, Sevilla at home? Is it on Wednesday? And then we've got Burnley straight after that at home. So we've got some home fixtures, which is good. And then we go, I think we've got a ridiculous run in November. I think it's a game for 3 days, isn't it? We've got now.
Yeah, so there's an international break, and then after the international break, we've got Brentford, Lens. Actually, it's just Brentford and Lens in November, and then it's December where it starts to get a little bit. So you've got Wolves, Luton, Villa, PSV, Brighton, Liverpool, West Ham, Fulham. So
how many of them are home and how many of them away?
We've got 1, 2, 3 home and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 away. December is going to be the month that defines what happens.
Liverpool Brighton weekend, Aston Villa as well. That's a difficult. And is the Liverpool, Aston Villa, and Brighton away, or are they all home?
Brighton's at home. Liverpool and Villa are away. So
key timing. This is like if we won yesterday, or at least got a draw, we'd be sitting third now. I think we're sitting third.
Yeah, but we're level. Remarkably, we're level on points with Liverpool.
Well, yeah, Liverpool should have won today. They were. I don't know how they didn't. Win today. We were lucky.
Yeah.
We're lucky. But this is football. This is the Premier League. Anything can happen. Any results can happen. So, to any fan who last night was going, we're not going to win the league, blah 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 blah. Chill, relax. It's, if anything, I'm happier that we're not necessarily, say, like, for instance, like when Tottenham, if they win tomorrow, right, they're going to be in our situation last year where they've got all the pressure on them. We know Tottenham are going to bottle it. I do not fret Tottenham winning the league a single bit because we know they're going to bottle it.
Yeah.
Thing like City though, they've lost twice already this season, yet they're top of the league. We lost
Mm,
once. We've lost
crazy.
once.
Yeah, it's really
We've
weird.
lost
Yeah.
one. It happens. It happens. It's football. We lose games. We win games. But now we've just got to pick ourselves up, and we've got to head off to Seville, home to Sevilla, and then against Burnley, who've been struggling this season. So hopefully we can come back, get kicking again, get some players back from injury, especially for sort of the international break in December. Hopefully get sort of like Jesus, Emerson throwback. Because, so for instance, I know you said you've thrown in the towel and Havertz. At this current moment in time in our team, obviously we can't do anything till January, right? Who do you put in to replace him alongside Martinet? Because I can't see Edgar being out for more than a game. Who would you put alongside him?
I, people might think I'm taking the piss, or maybe maybe you'll think that I'm being a little bit what's the word, cynical, but I'd honestly put in Mohamed El Neni.
I rate it solid, does a job.
Not
So
not
would you
not to
Rice?
mention.
So would you Rice, El Neni, Erdegaard?
Potentially, but you've also got Fabio Vieira as well, the forgotten man, who we need to have a discussion about actually, because now he's in his second season and he's struggling to start games. He's 23 years old as well. He hasn't had many starts. He still seems like a second string player, and we spent quite a bit of money on him. So I'm
Yeah,
really interested to see whether Arteta will give him an opportunity, seeing as this project Kai Havertz isn't working.
yeah.
You've also got players like Zinchenko who could potentially come into midfield as well if Arteta's feeling a little bit frisky.
Maybe Burnley's the
There are
game for it.
options.
Because the thing about Burnley, you know what they're going to do?
Yeah.
They're going to be lock up shop. We need to create. It's interesting actually. You bring up the point about Fabio Vieira, and I'll ponder this to you. If Fabio Vieira sort of like during the off season, and during last season trained better, considering that he is and was better, do you think we would have gone in for a player like Havertz?
I don't know, because
Or do you think we
the
still would
whole
have got in
Havertz
that?
transfer was all a bit strange, wasn't it? I mean, we were doing really well up until that moment, and I think everyone just forced themselves. Okay, I'll speak for myself. I forced myself to be very optimistic and positive about the
Yeah,
Havertz transfer, because it was at a point where we had just signed, or it was after Declan Rice, wasn't it?
yeah.
Or, or
No,
was it
was it?
just before Declan Rice? Anyway, we knew we were going to sign Rice, and so coupled with Havertz, it seemed okay. There was far too much optimism, there was far too much positivity for anyone to really second guess it. But it was one of those that it had your eyebrows raised. It was that, what's going on here? Why have we spent 60 million on Kai Havertz? It's okay. We trust Arteta, we trust the board, we trust Edu. They've done such a great job up until this point. It's very unlikely that they're going to make a mistake. And they can still turn the ship around, but from what I've seen, it's going to take something remarkable to, turn this sinking ship around. All right, so I think we've nattered on long enough about the game. I think
Mhm.
it's now time for
Good, bad, ugly.
Yes, it's time for good, bad, and ugly since we have lost a game. So, Monty, I'll ask you for your good moment of the game.
Do you know what? My good moment of the game is going to be Declan Rice. And I can't really pick out a moment. There were moments where he did like clear runs, like we said at the start of the half. I just think Declan Rice, just as a whole, his performance was the good. Um, Again, incredible. Just a Rolls Royce of a player. Dribbles, passes, touches, creates. There's nothing he can't do. And we're very lucky to have him as a player.
Yeah, my good moment, I'm going to go for the second best player on the pitch, which was William Saliba. Just a real Rolls Royce performance. Unfortunate to not get the clean sheet, but he did everything that he could. Really, he had a few moments in the game where individually he stood out. Controlling the ball in the air, turning players, using his upper body strength to shove players off and play it on. Just a real class performance from him. Give me your bad moment of the game.
Bad. There's I'm kind of split in between two, to be honest. I think one of them definitely, one of them definitely for me, because there was two sort of shaky bits. I'm gonna say Nketiah for the bad moment. Just wasteful. I just think although we didn't have a plethora of opportunities, I don't expect a striker to score every single opportunity they get. I do think he could have done better with the opportunities that he had. Like for instance, like the missed kick. Like at least put a connection on it. Do you know what I mean? Cause a save. If it goes wide, it goes wide. But at least put a connection on it. Do you know what I mean? At least give me that moment to go. Do you know? Not just oh. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to be off the bat. That for me is my bad moment. I just think we should have done more, and he could have done a little bit better.
Yeah, I was gonna pick the exact same moment that you said. So I don't know if there's any more for me to add on that. Other than you need to take your chances. You need to at least take the chances. If you're not gonna convert, or if your conversion rate is low, at least make sure you're hitting them, whether they're on target or not. And finally, your ugly moment of the game.
Ugly moment. I think ugly moment would honestly be, and it's not even really on us. It's sort of towards the end of the first half, just the way it sort of transcended. And not even an ugly moment on our players. I think our players were actually good. I think the ugly moment was the fact that the players weren't punished to what they should have been. I mean, Bruno, yes, Havertz probably should have been sent off, but so should Bruno Guimaraes. And I think if those two were sent off, with Havertz not being in there, I think we would have actually been a better team. Because I mean, I think it was like something like only 20% of our attacks went down the middle. Yes, we just couldn't. Where normally, averagely, we're around about the 29-31% mark, and that's because we've got Ødegaard and Rice who are creating. So for me, that ugly moment's going to be just sort of how that transcended, and the fact that they weren't amply punished for them, because I think it would have changed the game. And it's not even necessarily bad. I mean, Liverpool literally beat Newcastle away, going down to 10 men. So it doesn't necessarily make your worst team, especially when you've got a player who just wasn't really connecting. So for me, that's my ugly moment. But it wasn't necessarily on us directly. It's more just the ugly moment of the game.
Yeah, well, I'm going to go for the obvious, which is the horrendous decision to give Newcastle that goal. Still don't understand why it was given, despite the ball clearly crossing the line. Do you know what the explanation is for that? Why they decided to still give the goal despite the ball going over the line?
I'm probably going to come out with some jargon, lawyer bullshit statement in like a day, and
circumference and a Pythagoras.
Literally. And just to quote Arteta, I don't care what they say. I care about actions and what they do. The fact is, apology's not going to give us fucking 3 points, is it? Or one. I would have taken a draw from yesterday, because I think that's what the game deserved. But we got it stolen from us, and Newcastle are 3 points higher, about 2 points behind us, or a point behind us, or whatever they are. Maybe even 3, but they're definitely up there now because they won that game. Gives them confidence, makes us pissed off. Yeah, that was just it's just poor. It's just poor from the best league in the world. You expect better. Better.
Okay, good stuff. Well, it's that time where unfortunately we must say goodbye. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone who's listened up until this point. Thank you very, very much. If you did enjoy this episode, please do give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Let us know what you thought of the show by reaching out to us on Twitter. You can find us over there at Arsenal Therapy. You can also find Monty over there at Monty_official_. And you can find myself over there at Gunner Since 96. As always, we will be back very soon, in the next few days actually, to give you your usual weekly dose of Arsenal therapy. But if you can't wait until then, make sure to head over to the Arsenal Therapy YouTube channel for the 15-minute show, which I promise will be returning once Adam is back from his holidays. In fact, I might do an episode on his behalf, so stay tuned for that. And yes, you guessed it, it is indeed 15 minutes long-ish. I don't think we've ever made it 15 minutes long.
We try.
Make sure we do try. Yeah, make sure to also head over to the Arsenal Therapy website for the blog post where we'll be breaking down all of our thoughts and feelings on this game and much, much more. So until then, take care. Have yourselves a lovely week, and we'll speak to you soon. Thank you very much. Bye bye.